Macbeth is one of those timeless stories that even to this day can be adapted for any setting. There have of course been several adaptations of Macbeth over the years, but today I will be sizing up two Indian adaptations that stand out in completely different ways. Vishal Bharadwaj's Maqbool and Dileesh Pothan's Joji. But before we unravel these adaptations, we must understand the play itself. The play is the story of Macbeth, whose ambition leads him to murder and then to his eventual doom. A lot of different elements of the story lead to this conclusion, and the first of them are the characters. The first characters to appear in the play are the Weird Sisters, better known as the Three Witches. What's important to know about the witches is that they have an inhuman quality about them.
What are these? So withered and so wild in their attire that look not like the inhabitants of the earth and yet aren't.
This duality of their being non-earthly creatures and still being on the earth ties in with the duality of their famous phrase, fair is foul and foul is fair. This phrase defines a core theme of the play, that things that seem to be good and just will often turn out to be wrong, while things that seem bad or wrong turn out to be good at the end. Here we must understand the key role of the witches. They do not interfere in the affairs of human beings, yet their words push humans into action. They predict futures, but it's their predictions that lead Macbeth to take the bloody steps that he does. The next important character is Duncan, the King of Scotland. Macbeth is a general in Duncan's army and is a favorite of Duncan's. A key characteristic of Duncan is that he doesn't trust the right people and is completely oblivious to Macbeth's plans of killing him. Duncan is generally loved and considered to be a good ruler. Keep this in mind as we go forward. The other general of Duncan's army is the next key character, Banquo. If Duncan is the leader and father figure that Macbeth betrays, Banquo is a friend whom he backstabs. While the Weird Sisters promise Macbeth that he will be king, they promise Banquo that while he won't be a king himself, he will be the father of a lineage of kings. So Macbeth kills Banquo, but Banquo's son Fleance escapes, thus making the prediction come true. There is also Macduff, the one who is destined to kill Macbeth, Malcolm, who is the crown prince, and Duncan's son, and other minor characters. But of course, the best known and probably the most interesting supporting character is Lady Macbeth. Macbeth's wife, who actually possesses the ambition that she passes on to Macbeth and provokes him to kill Duncan. Lady Macbeth begins with extreme ambition and ends in madness, as she is unable to take the guilt she feels for her actions. No good adaptation of Macbeth is complete without Lady Macbeth. Largely, the play focuses on themes like the contradictions of human society, the price one's conscience has to pay for one's actions, and how a person often meets their destiny on the path they take to avoid it. While it may seem like these themes are essential to adapting Macbeth, Maqbool and Joji prove that a lot more can be done with the tools provided by Shakespeare. So let's take a look at Maqbool as an adaptation. Maqbool is set in the Mumbai underworld, where Maqbool is a general in Abbaji's operations. Abbaji, of course, is Duncan, the king who loves and trusts Maqbool or Macbeth. But before we get ahead, we must go back to the first scene where inspectors Pandit and Purohit are introduced. These two policemen are in fact the witches. They aren't part of the underworld and yet exist in its ecosystem. In other words, they are not of this world and yet are in it. They have an inhuman cruelty about them that makes them different from the other characters. They are sometimes comic relief and sometimes the narrators. But most importantly, they predict the future and meddle in the matters of the underworld just enough to start a chain of events. Pandit uses Janam Patris instead of the witch's cauldron to see the future and declares right at the beginning that Maqbool's name is written all over Mumbai's destiny, a destiny that is soon to be blood-soaked.
Sari Mumbai khoon se bhar di.
Maqbool in many ways is an adaptation true to the play, as it beautifully incorporates several of the original scenes from the play in the context of the underworld. There's the scene where the witches tell Macbeth his future.
Abba ji ki gaddi Miyan ki hai. King of King.
And then tell Banquo his.
तू अभी तक जिंदा कैसे है? तेरे बेटे की पत्री देखी, बहुत दम है साले में.
This scene establishes Kaka as Banquo and his son Guddu as Fleance. The new ACP Devsare is introduced first as the eyes of the audience, as the two policemen explain the world of the film to him. But soon after that, he is sent packing for trying to take down Abbaji. Devsare will be brought back as a prediction coming true later in the film. True to the play, the witch's first prediction comes true, and Maqbool gets control of Bollywood. This is where he is pushed to consider the bigger prediction as achievable. But before we get ahead, we must note what the two policemen tell Devsare.
शक्ति का संतुलन बहुत जरूरी है संसार में सर।
आग के लिए पानी का डर बने रहना चाहिए।
This is the film's take on fair is foul and foul is fair. This interpretation would mean that both good things and bad things need to happen to maintain the balance of the universe. So while good things are happening to Maqbool now, it won't be the case forever. Moving on, Maqbool's Lady Macbeth is Abbaji's mistress, Nimmi. Nimmi and Maqbool are in love, and that is why it is Nimmi's desire from the start to see Abbaji die. Unlike in the play, the love between Nimmi and Maqbool is an important point of focus in the film. While their love is fair as it is a pure emotion of giving and sharing, it is also foul as it will lead to the destruction of everything. Abbaji recognizes that there is a fire inside Maqbool, but he doesn't recognize that this anger is also directed towards him for being with the woman Maqbool loves. Maqbool is already insecure about his position, and he feels even more threatened by Guddu because of his closeness to Samira, Abbaji's daughter. Maqbool tries to destroy his relationship, but to his dismay, Abbaji accepts Guddu as his daughter's future husband and the heir to his kingdom. And then the fateful day comes. Guddu and Samira's engagement party is organized at Maqbool's house. This resembles the feast at Macbeth's castle, an occasion meant to be joyous that will soon turn into horror and tragedy. While Nimmi has got Maqbool on board to kill Abbaji, Abbaji is oblivious.
जी करता है अपना गोश्त पकवा दूं तेरी बिरयानी।
Inspector Pandit further provokes Maqbool, instigating that Abbaji isn't as kind as he likes to portray. The two policemen also predict that there will be many corpses before Samira's wedding.
लड़की मंगली है, बहुत लाशों पे से विदा होकर जाएगी।
But Abbaji in true Duncan style is under the illusion of security.
अरे मकबूल का घर है यहाँ, माँ के पेट की तरह महफूज।
Much like the play in which Lady Macbeth makes the king's guards drink themselves to sleep, Nimmi forces Abbaji's loyal bodyguard to drink despite his religious beliefs, to make sure he is asleep when the murder takes place. The stormy night from the play is recreated with a scene directly from the play.
10 I can remember well, within the volume of which time I have seen hours dreadful and things strange. But this sore night hath trifled former knowings.
कैसी अजीब रात है ससुर, ये बारिश, ये मौसम, 70 साल में पहली बार।
A montage sets up the eeriness of the night. As Macbeth sees a floating dagger in the play, Maqbool sees blood. This is only the first of many hallucinations that will plague him. The deed is done in a flash of lightning in a horrific scene where blood gets on Nimmi. In the play, Lady Macbeth claims a little water clears us of this deed. But as it turns out, no amount of water can clear Lady Macbeth of what she has done. Eventually, Kaka is killed while he is praying at a temple, which again resonates with the theme of the play of something good and pure turning into something sinister. Guddu escapes this attack and is joined by those who support him. This is where Boti's role begins. Boti is the son of Abbaji's dead rival, whom Abbaji took under his wing. Boti holds Maqbool responsible for his father's death. To understand Boti's role in everything, we must look at this scene. The two policemen put a tilak on his head, pretending to be his friends, and then question him about Guddu's whereabouts. As they create an encounter type situation, it seems like the tilak on Boti's head is meant to resemble that of a sacrificial lamb. But the policemen let him escape, saying,
शक्ति का संतुलन बहुत जरूरी है संसार में। आग के लिए पानी का डर बने रहना चाहिए।
It turns out that Tilak actually anoints Boti as the one who will kill Maqbool. Boti is in fact Macduff. Now in the play, the witches predict that Macbeth will only be defeated if the great Burnham would march to his castle. In Maqbool, the policemen predict this.
अब दरिया खुद चल के तेरे घर आएगा मियाँ तो तू डूबेगा। 100% डूबेगा।
दरिया चल के आएगा, पैदल आएगा कि गाड़ी में?
And sure enough, in the play, Malcolm's army uses branches from Burnham Wood as a camouflage and heads towards Macbeth's castle. In the film, Dev Sari returns as a customs officer and enters Maqbool's house with officers of the sea. Just as in the play, Nimi dies of her madness, but while Macbeth's reaction was a lot more impersonal, Maqbool feels like he has lost everything. Here it is important to note that in the play, Macbeth's ego drives him till the very end. But in the film, Maqbool starts to realize all that has been destroyed. The peace, happiness and beauty of Abbaji's family and kingdom. Now there is deceit, pain, sadness everywhere, and Maqbool laments over it. The final moment of duality is the scene where Maqbool expects Guddu to hurt his baby, but instead he sees Guddu and Samira taking on the responsibility of the child. Finally, what seemed foul is fair, and Maqbool has nothing more to live for. The beauty of the original play shines clearly through Maqbool, but Joji takes a different approach. Joji is set in the home of a rich rubber business family of Kerala. In this house, the father of the family, Kuttappan, is Duncan. He is established as a strong man who rules with an iron fist. Jomon, one of his sons, is Banquo, and Jomon's son, Poppy, is Fleance. Joji, needless to say, is Macbeth, while Binsi, the wife of Jason, who is the third brother, is Lady Macbeth. However, the opening sequence of the film doesn't focus on a character, but on an air gun that Poppy has ordered with Kuttappan's money. While the air gun causes a rift at this point, its actual purpose is revealed much later. Now it's important to note the dynamics of this house. Unlike in the play where Macbeth is a brave soldier and is loved by Duncan, Joji is the black sheep of his family, and his father has very little respect for him. His brothers Jason and Jomon are hard-working, but they all surrender before their father, who has absolute power in the household. It's important to note here, both Joji and his father are narcissists. While Kuttappan wants everything to be done his way, Joji too is self-absorbed and full of self-pity. After Kuttappan suffers a stroke, we are introduced to Felix, a family friend. While Felix seemed to be on the sidelines, he has an important purpose that we will soon find out. Kuttappan's stroke raises a lot of questions in the family. While Jason and Jomon worry about the running of the business, Binsi asks if Kuttappan has a will. As Lady Macbeth, Binsi is focused on a better life that can come with Appa's passing. Binsi and Joji get along well, and while there is no romantic connection between them, Binsi is fond of Joji and pushes him to have his way. Kuttappan's state, which seems like an opportunity to everyone else, is a painful sight to Jomon, who vows to indulge in prayer for the health of his father. With all of this happening in the background, there comes a fateful moment when Joji's life changes.
Good night.
At this point, Felix is established as the witches. You see, the witches are meant to be inhuman, and Felix represents the most inhuman thing that surrounds us all: society. Felix believes in people-pleasing and in backbiting. He says and does things that indirectly affect the fate of humanity. Felix's prediction doesn't scare Joji like in the play. It makes him happy, excited even. But things don't quite go as he wants them to. When Kuttappan's health deteriorates during a prayer session, he is rushed to the hospital for surgery and he returns stronger than before. Binsi sends Jason to ask Kuttappan to help with getting an apartment near Jason's clinic, but Appa only humiliates Jason, who passes on this humiliation to Binsi. Binsi is now charged with fury, which he takes out on Joji.
ജോജി, ഈ ഇരിക്കുന്നതാണ് ഫ്രിഡ്ജ്. നീ ഒന്ന് കൈ ഒത്തിച്ചാൽ ദേ ഇങ്ങനെ തുറക്കാം. ഇതിൽ കുപ്പിയിൽ വെള്ളം നിറച്ചു വെച്ചിട്ടുണ്ട്. എടുക്കുക, കുടിക്കുക.
This is Binsi's way of telling Joji that if he wants something, he will have to take action to get it.
നല്ല കാലം മുഴുവൻ നിനക്കൊക്കെ ഈ സ്ലാബിന്റെ പുറത്തിരുന്ന് കഴിക്കാനാണ് ബുദ്ധി.
Binsi's words and his father's behavior lead Joji to plan his murder. Unlike in the play where Duncan's murder is the product of a night of frenzy, Appa's murder spans over days because unlike Macbeth, who was unsure and overcome with nervousness, Joji is determined and remorseless. Here, Binsi is a passive spectator but also a co-conspirator. She has ambition, but it is subtle, not visible to anyone but Joji. Appa's death comes as a shock to the family while Joji and Binsi have to hide their feelings before everyone.
നീ ഇങ്ങനെ കിടക്കാതെ അങ്ങോട്ട് വന്നിരുന്നേ ജോജി. നീ ഒരു മാസ്ക് എടുത്ത് വെച്ചിട്ട് വാ.
Joji finally feels like a king, but the fear of getting caught is what still haunts him. While Joji is finally getting what he wants through the division, the threat of a possible autopsy lingers. As Jomon discovers Joji's crime, Joji kills him too, in true Macbeth fashion, with the airgun we saw at the beginning. It's interesting to note here that no matter how many people Joji kills, he does not feel guilt, but all he fears is that he will get caught and lose out on his dreams. He manipulates so effortlessly as lying is second nature to him. Unfortunately, Joji is caught at the end when Poppy tells everyone about the airgun. Joji tries to end his own life knowing that there is no other way out, but he only ends up paralyzed like his father. Like his father, he is stubborn and refuses to confess even when all strength has left his body. At the end, all he had was his little room in his father's vast kingdom. The film is ultimately about the rise and fall, not of a hero, but of a narcissist, a manipulator, who fights for his life with deception. While Maqbool shows us what Shakespeare can look like in a modern setting, Joji shows us an alternative reality, where characters aren't just flawed, but evil. While a person with a conscience must pay the price of their own remorse, a person without a conscience can live on in denial even after the world comes crashing down. So which version do you like the most? Let me know in the comments. See you next time.